Hello, hello, everybody. Oh my goodness, I am so very excited to have you here today. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Elsie Escobar, and I am the Director of Community and Content over at Libsyn. And this is one of our little live events that we have going on. And we've been really focusing on trying to get you up and into all kinds of stuff, video podcasting, because, you know, that is the conversation that's happening in the space, at least at this time, and hopefully in the future, if you are watching it in the future. And today I have one of the most incredible guests when it comes to video podcasting. This is someone that I've been learning from for quite a while, kind of lurking in the background for a long time. And I know that she does the same kind of work that I do. We kind of have parallel like work lives in some way, shape, or form. So say hello today to Katie Fawkes from the Ecamm team. Now, Katie is the director of marketing over there, and I know that she does a lot more than just, like, that's a title that we can give her, but I know she is, like, literally, like, all kinds of tools. She knows what to do in all kinds of situations. We were just talking about all of the things that we do together, right? That we have to like constantly be putting out fires and responding to things and like saying hello and going, oh no, that's broken, or oh my God, we have to get that out. I didn't know it was due, and you know, all kinds of stuff. So thank you so much for coming. This is so great.
Oh my goodness. I was so excited. I love a good dance off. I'm now energized, ready to go.
Here we go. Yeah. I really wanted you to have you on here because you've been doing some, number one, incredible work when it comes to the Ecamm, just the Ecamm as a whole, like especially with Ecamm Live, which is a piece of software that we'll talk about here very soon, a platform that a lot of folks have used, and it's really matured into such a powerful piece of a lot of people's workflows. But, you know, y'all were obviously part of the whole live streaming part of things for such a long time, and your team as a whole is incredibly powerful when it comes to content creation. I believe, at least from what I've been lurking in the background, it is a heavily content, like you all have like superstars in terms of content creation. Like I don't think you have to teach people to be like, okay, this is a microphone.
Sometimes I love that we tricked you into that. Sometimes we definitely have people that join what we call the Ecamm fam who are like, you know, what maybe not what's a microphone, but lots of like, what microphone do I get? What camera do I get? How do I do all of the things? So yeah.
No,
we have lots of content in that world.
It's so awesome. But you know, the conversation, but what's really cool too though, is that, you know, now video podcasting has had, you know, it started to pick up a lot more steam. Mind you, I know that Doc Rock would just be very sad if I didn't mention the fact that video podcasting has always been a thing. So it's
Doc has been doing it before it was a thing. Doc is the original hipster in this case example. Yes. But it's definitely picked up steam.
Oh my God, yes. And so it's been around, in fact, way back in the day, and you all talked about it in your show, The Flow. Video podcasting was really like it was almost on par with with audio podcasting. And there were these parts inside of iTunes at that time that were a whole other like area with like these really cool video podcasts that were already living in there. I remember even my very, very first podcast in 2006, which is a yoga podcast, I published a few videos. Most of it was audio, but a few videos, and I got an opportunity to have it in that like video section. I was so excited about the fact that I had that special video page, because you got to rank, you know, more in that time. Better, I guess, because I was one of a handful of people who were doing that. And so it's always been a thing. It's just that now, because I feel YouTube has come wrapped into the mix, it's become a little different. What do you think about some of that stuff that you've have you felt that too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the reality is, and I mean, this in some ways goes goes to audio only, but it's now significantly more accessible, right? I mean, even 10, 15 years ago, it was thousands of dollars and a recording studio and a degree
Yeah.
in how to use all of this equipment and all of these tools and
Yep.
the software, and it was just unattainable for most people. It was something that, radio professionals did and television professionals did, and you watched it on TV, or it was over there. It was something that was over there and
Yeah.
that none of us really had accessibility into unless it was something we really wanted to pursue as a career. Whereas now it can be a hobby.
Yeah.
What used to be millions of dollars in equipment and, this huge space can now be, a webcam, USB microphone and a computer, and a really perfect looking the out of a home office, out of a, closet people have converted into a podcasting studio. So, all of us now have the ability to share our voices and share our passions and start these shows. And the more accessible video and audio get, the more those lines start to blur. So I really think that we're on this trajectory of there not being a really huge difference as we move forward between live streaming and video shows and
Mm-hmm.
audio only podcasts. I think it's all just going to really be shows that are available in different formats, and those of us who are able to really embrace video are going to be those of us who win at this game, because we're able to get in front of a much wider audience as players like YouTube start seeing the potential in the podcasting space and
Oh my
quickly are
gosh.
moving into it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, I think that that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of go into this. So folks that are watching here, we do, like, especially on our channel, on the Libsyn channel, we have quite a bit of resources of how to get started podcasting and, all
Yeah.
kinds of things in terms of tools and everything. But everything is very centered on audio podcasting, right? We haven't really done anything that's video podcasting related. And the reason that I asked Katie to come on here is that we want to talk about a workflow that is video first. So it's not necessarily that we want you to just go like, this is how you create a video podcast, but it's more about the process of starting with the idea of doing everything video first and then being able to execute on a larger, I feel, strategy that is, I think it's in some way more holistic and also gives you the potential to be more expansive. How would you describe what video first podcasting is?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think video in many ways is the most kind of challenging and scary part of the process. And so what I would challenge all of you is, if you want to get into this video podcasting space, or you want to be leveraging video more, or just growing your podcast in general, if you start with video, and I would challenge you, even if you start with live video, which may be the scariest to all of you watching, you create a really effective workflow where you don't need to be spending a ton of time creating individual pieces of content. You can build an audio podcast and a video podcast and video clips that you use for social promotion, and shorts and blog posts and all of these pieces of content that you need to grow your show and to grow your business through the act of doing it once, whether recording or live streaming a video. Because again, the video side of it is often the most quote unquote complicated of the process. So if you start with that and you have a really great plan, you can actually leverage all the content that you're creating in video to use in all of these different spaces. And I this is that tried this plan out before I came here and preached it at all of you. It's something that we do now weekly on Ecamm's YouTube channel, our podcast, The Flow. And it saves us a ton of time. We've created like this really efficient, effective strategy where we do basically a live video recording every single week, Tuesdays at noon on our YouTube channel. And we're able to use that as an opportunity to record our video podcast for the week. But we pull the audio out of that. We create video clips from that longer video. We're creating additional resources, PDFs and blog posts. We're able to use that kind of one recording session, which is really only about an hour in length, and have months worth of content and be in all of the different channels in the format that people want to see on those channels. So I think video is the scariest, so do it first.
I know.
If you're going to do it first.
It feels to me too, because of the what you mentioned too, is that it feels a lot, obviously the scariest part, but it feels also like the most complicated. And it kind of also brings, one of the things that we teach in terms of audio as well, whenever you're recording the audio, that the most important part of that is that you get the best quality audio in, right? The best quality that you can in that first time, because then it actually makes everything easier on the back end versus you not thinking about that. And then you're just recording and there's all kinds of audio issues. It just becomes a pain in the behind when it comes to post-production. And that can take up such a long time. But if you think about the best way to get the best quality from the get-go, I think that that's kind of when it comes to video first. So what do you think that who is video first best suited for, you feel?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, and maybe this is, I'm biased. I work for a company that makes a live streaming and video production tool. Yeah. So that out there, I really think everyone, I really think that, again, as we said earlier, the landscape is changing. It's changing really quickly. And you have more people who want to be able to see you and they want to be able to engage with you, whether that's showing up for a live stream or seeing what you look like or seeing what your space looks like or, seeing what your guests look like. The connection that you have in being able to see someone is really different than the connection that you have in putting someone in your ears and listening to a podcast. And you may have people who will only stay on the audio side, but there are a lot of people who are going to go between the two. And there are a lot of people who prefer video. And it's getting much easier these days for them to even switch between the two. So, people who might start off going on a walk, and they're listening to your podcast on, Spotify, and then they get into their office or they're starting their day and they switch over and are watching it on YouTube. And then they, want to go back and run an errand or something and pushing it on, on YouTube, but they're not looking at the video, for example. So I would just say that if you want to reach a wider audience, adding in video is just an easy way to do that. And I think the opportunities are going to continue to grow as we move forward with it.
If I were to add a caveat to that answer to you, like who it's best suited for, if I were to be thinking about the everyday podcaster, one of the key things that I think would stop me from doing video, and I've experienced this, I have great experience with this actually, is the fact that so I used to live for a long time, for about almost 3.5, 4 years, in an area where I could not get appropriate internet. And if I would have had a video podcast to produce on a weekly basis, I probably would not have been I would have given up if the video component of it was the heaviest lift, because there were times with my people who were my co-hosts that I had to get on the phone. Like I had to get on the regular cellular phone, and we would have to do a double ender, and it was horrible because there's latency with the phone as well, right? So even then we were talking over each other, and for one of the editors that I worked with in one of my shows, it was really rough for me as well to be able to manage that. So I'm happy if you have the infrastructure around you where internet speeds for you are a little bit iffy, I would maybe focus a little bit more on just the audio component, because even when people ask me to be guests on shows, I literally had to be like, I'm cool, but I can't use video, so I'm happy to record. And I would record every single episode I went on my end, because I knew I was going to drop out. Like I just knew I was going to disappear. So in that respect, it was a challenge for me. And it also, I think, video files are bigger as a whole. So being able to send those files off to editors, being able to receive, that was another thing when I was editing my other show, receiving just the audio file, an uncompressed WAV file from my co-host. I had to go into town to download the file so that I would start to be able to edit it. So I think sometimes that might be a little restrictive. So I would check your speeds when it comes to some of that.
I'd agree with all of that. I mean, I think as a creator, as someone that is working on a show, you're doing it because you have a passion, a mission. There's a reason why you've created your show, and so there's going to be steps along the way of growth, right? So yeah, I'm a big believer that you should just get started. If you have an idea and it's something you want to do, start. If it's starting that you need to just do it on your phone, audio only, power to you, get up and running, make small changes and additions and growth every single episode, every single week. Just get 1% better, right? And whatever that means for you and for your goals. But I would say, it at some point, any of this, whether it's video or even if you're staying in the audio only space, there's going to be an investment, right? So you're going to hit a point where you're going to need to figure out, okay, my internet is a barrier and is a challenge and is stopping me from being able to, get better guests or, control the quality or do what I want to do. You're going to need to think through those solutions. And some of them might be thinking outside the box, and some of them might be investing or growing, financially to be able to have the right gear and the right space and the right places and people. But yeah, I totally agree. The internet is always a challenge. It's a challenge for, across the board, but there are solutions out there. And I think, again, more and more as this becomes more of kind of a global phenomenon and more people are entering the podcasting space, both in video and audio, there are more resources available to all of us. I was amazed to find that even a lot of local libraries in larger cities now have podcasting booths that you can rent out and be able to leverage not only a quiet space, but in many cases tools and gear as well. So there are more and more solutions available to all of us that are kind of breaking through some of those barriers and stopping those, oh my goshes, and turning them into opportunities as we move forward. So yeah, lots to think outside the box as far as it goes. And I would say certainly it's going to be an individual decision for everyone, but don't let some of the limitations get in the way of doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Especially, I think that one thing that I have found is that podcasters are so creative when it comes to to solving issues. I mean, I've had to deal with so much, and I've figured out so many different hacks to be able to work on those things. And the libraries were fundamental to me being and continuing being able to do stuff. I was amazed by the support of librarians as well. I would come in and I would just go like, do you guys have any space? I need to record this thing. And they were so sweet. They would take me to separate rooms. They would give me access sometimes whenever there were rooms that were not being used, because sometimes maybe they don't have an actual recording space that is, for podcasting, if you will. But a lot of the time they have rooms that are set for school, like any kind of, or classes. And a lot of those rooms are like they have audio treatment because they don't want to have the library have all the people talking, right? So there is something around that. And they were super sweet, super helpful. And you can also, and it's free, where you can go like, can I have this room for 30 minutes or can I have it for an hour? And you never have to rent it. I'm a huge fan of that for libraries and things like that. It's an unbelievable opportunity for that. But given that, let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that you have seen, or maybe like, let's think we're taking step number 1 for someone who is looking to add a video component to the mix, or maybe begin the process of recording their show with the video first mentality. What are some hardware musts that you have got to have these things in order to get the best quality of what you have?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So so if you're starting in the world of video, obviously you need some kind of camera. Likely you already have a microphone, I hope, if you're doing podcasting. So the next step would be adding a camera in. I actually would say that the mass majority of you probably have an unbelievable camera built right into your phone. And there are a number of really affordable and even some free options out there to be able to connect your phone into your computer to use it as a camera source or as a webcam. In a number of different softwares. So yeah, you would need a camera. You would need some kind of software. So whether that's Ecamm or or any of the other different softwares that are out there that allow you to build really professional looking video show. And again, start small and start with whatever budget works best for you. But I would challenge you to think through what you already have. And again, many of us have some pretty phenomenal cameras built right into our phones. You could go up to a webcam. Elgato makes a really good face cam webcam that is fairly affordable, but will allow you some additional controls. And then, all the way up to some of the more expensive, DSLR or mirrorless cameras. We tend to use Sony. That's what I'm using right now, just because the autofocus is so good. But those obviously are significantly more expensive. So it really depends on your budget. I would say the camera actually doesn't matter as much as the lighting.
I
So
was just going to say that.
really playing
Oh my
around with
God.
it's amazing to me because I have done some testing with this, and I am not nearly as phenomenal at gear as my co-host Doc Rock is.
Yeah.
But you just messing around with with lights, whether they're lights you have within your
Yeah.
home or or getting, ideally you're able to work your way up to some video lights, whether it's a ring light or some other light that just gives you a little bit more control. But just move the positioning, take note of what time of day it is and what the natural light is like in your space. If you can block out the natural light and control the lighting in your space, that's probably better, just because you never know whether it's going to be a cloudy day or a rainy day or time of day,
Yeah.
light, dark. Do your best to kind of control the lighting, and you will notice a difference even in what is a cheaper, crummier quality webcam. You'll still get a pretty good picture out of it if you can get yourself well lit, and it does make a big difference there. But yeah, it's video is testing and playing around with it to see what not only what quality you can get out of the gear that you invest in, but also how you want it to look. I mean, you might want it to look a little like more gritty and kind of authentic looking, in which case maybe it doesn't matter. Like maybe you want a multi-camera angle. Maybe you want I would just challenge you to think through what you like and what is the best look for the show and for the content that you're trying to do. These days, again, you can do most of it pretty affordably, and you can do most of it pretty easily because so much of it is accessible to us now. So it's more thinking through like what do you want it to look like? How do you what are some examples of shows that you really like, and styles that you really like, and can you mimic those with gear that you have or that you can acquire?
I think that's the number one thing that you said, is always look at the stuff that you already have. That's like a huge learning lesson that I have had. Don't ever think that there's something outside of what you currently have to make it work. It's one of the key things for you to really think about in the process. By the way, just to give you guys an FYI, and next month we are going to have Doc Rock, who is also he's the community manager over at Ecamm, and we are going to going deeper into the actual stuff, like the hardware and stuff. So you're going to have to hold off
give you
to that.
Very specifics on that, but
stuff. Yes.
Hide your wallets, because he will. He loves to chat about it, and he knows all of the gear and the equipment so well. But I will say that his mantra is the same as mine, in that whatever is the gear that helps you get started, you are better off just getting started and then taking it up a notch every single time, versus saying like, oh, I can't start because I'm saving up for this $2,000 camera that I need. The $2,000 camera is not going to make your content better. You're going to make your content better. Get it out there and move your way up the scale, versus waiting for waiting for all of the best stuff. All of the best stuff is not going to make it easier to get started, unfortunately. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
It's crazy, because what you said about lighting also, folks, because I'm going to just address how I started to set my studio up when I did. I felt, right at the pandemic, it wasn't necessarily that we're starting to do video podcasting, but I was asked to be a part of a lot of virtual events. And I always thought like, okay, how can I bring my best foot forward and always look the best that I possibly can? And I think the number one investment that I did was my lighting. But I used to actually put my entire setup in front of my window, because the light of that window was essential to me getting the best quality. And that was like single-handedly one of the best things I did, was to move around in my bedroom in front of the window. The second thing I did is I bought like the cheapest camera that I could without, at that time we didn't have continuity camera, so I couldn't really use my phone. And I got a Logitech C920, because everybody said that was like the best one to get for the price point, right? Without like spending so much money. And I believe, like, I don't know, is it still like around $60 or $75? Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Yes. I mean, and And again, my kids laugh at me all the time because I'm in like this tiny home office space in
Yeah.
this like very, very old farmhouse. And and it's not a perfect room. I'm there in with the guinea pig and all the craft supplies and whatever. And so I'm constantly shifting things around in that space. And I will do this thing where I'm looking at, the video on my monitor and I'll be touching my face. I'm like, this is darker. This side is darker. So I've got to move this light, like but
Yes.
it's, so much of it is visual, and we often panic and are like, "Oh, I don't know enough about lighting. I need to go and watch, all these videos, and I need to really dive deep to learn all about lighting." You know more about lighting than you think you do. You
Yeah.
look at the output, and you can see where the dark parts are. Physically move the lights around until it gets to the state that you want it to be. Adjust them and turn them up and down, and control the warmth and the coolness of them. It's really it's only a few settings, but yeah, I'm constantly touching my face to be like, okay, here's dark. Okay, here, this is too close. I got to push this back. Oh, now this is in the shot. I got to move the camera. It takes a little bit of time. And if you can leave things the way it is, then you only have to do that one time. If you have to move stuff around, just get some tape and put little markers. Like, this is my little camera marker. This is my little light marker, so that you can set it back up quickly. But the amount of time you're going to spend is really just, the first time of getting it right. And then, either you do markers or you have it already set up to go, and then you'll have to make small changes every time.
Every time. It's so good to just even the lighting and the camera, y'all, seriously, and you'll be golden and also the last thing I would say is framing. You got to you kind of learn to frame yourself as best as you can. Right. And again, it comes from looking. So don't think that there's a magical something or other. Like, you can, like, how, I don't know if you know this, but I know this. Like, if I take a selfie of myself, sometimes it feels like so much better than if somebody else takes a picture of me, because I know what angle I need to hold a thing at. So when you frame a camera, think about it that way too. You know how to look good in the camera. Just frame it that way, and then get something in the background to be the height that works the best with your face. And you'll slowly start to learn a little bit about that, right? So that's really good. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the hardware, super basic stuff, right? And if you guys want specifics, we'll talk about it later on. But we want to cover as much content as we can before I answer all the questions. Oh my God, the chat. So
hi, chat. We see you.
We see you. We see you. We love you. But now let's talk software. Let's talk some software. And obviously, let's talk a little bit about Ecamm Live first. And then I will give a little options in case they don't know about other ones. So
yes, we're not judging you if you don't use Ecamm. We really, really just want you to create amazing content, whatever that means for you.
And full disclosure, before you begin, we are using Ecamm Live. It's what the Libsyn team uses to create these events. And we've been using them now for over a year. And so, we've been doing Ecamm Live stuff. So anyway, go forth, Katie.
So Ecamm Live is a Mac only software. So already, if you're sitting here like, I have a PC, I'm so sorry. There are other options out there for you, but Ecamm is a Mac only software. And really what it allows you to do is leverage all of the power that exists within your Mac computer and be able to use it to create live stream broadcasts, recorded videos, or to improve all of the capabilities and functionality and quality, basically, of your video in other apps like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any of the video conferencing or virtual event platforms. So if you want to be able to, roll video clips or bring in lower thirds or add graphics or multiple camera angles or guests or all those things, and a platform like Zoom doesn't let you do that, you can actually take all of the features within Ecamm and send them through what we call a virtual camera. Slightly complicated, but not really relevant for today's, but that is one of the things that Ecamm does. Ecamm is a software that really makes it very, very easy for you to be able to do things like, bring in graphics, roll video clips, bring on guests, add titles and tickers and countdown timers, anything that you would put into a video or a show, you can add in Ecamm really easily. And it's all done in two ways. I would suggest you use our planning tools. So we have a feature called Scenes that lets you basically think through and plan out your entire show in advance, so that when you're live streaming or recording, you literally just have to kind of go from one scene to the next, and that'll flow through your show. But you can do everything on the fly if you want to. So we don't stop you from being completely ad hoc and doing everything while you're streaming or recording. But it does really make it easy. Everything is drag and drop. Everything is editable. So really what we like to say is, if you can imagine it, you can create it in video, and you can do it again live or recorded in any format. So if you want to do a widescreen like we're doing right now, totally great, easy to do. If you wanted to do it as a vertical video because you were, live streaming or recording video for Instagram or TikTok or YouTube Shorts, you can do that in Ecamm as well. And you can switch back and forth between the two. So.
Yep. I think that one of my favorite for speaking about Ecamm, one of the key things that I love about it is, again, the expansiveness of the product itself. So let's say, like, I use it for a lot of different things, not just for live streaming like we're doing right now, or for creating a show, if you will, with all of these fancy overlays and things. We often use it for production. If I'm recording a video by myself and I have to send it to Brian, our video editor, I will record my own just plain video with nothing on it and just give him the raw file for him to do it. So we've done it, we've used it that way. I've used it to do presentations and things like Zoom, and then bring all the fancy stuff in there. And it's also, like she mentioned, creating things like Reels and TikTok videos with like cute overlays, and it's already set up for you. It's so, like, I cannot tell you how freeing that is, because usually, because I've been doing podcasting for so long, my audio needs to be, it's really hard for me to just be like, I'm just going to put my thing there and I'm just going to record, just because I have hangups. So being able to do it like on screen and think about what I'm doing, even if it's like a 1-minute video, it's just so great. Because the output, I know you can cut it. I know that you can cut it in post, people. But there's something great about just recording in it and then have the output be the size that you want.
Yeah, there's something about just doing it and then being done. I know editing is either like your favorite thing, or you're already out the door the second I say the word editing. You're like, no way, not for me.
Yeah.
But you can absolutely, you can be either person and still use Ecamm. So we give you all of the final files to be able to, trim up, cut up, do whatever you want to do in the world of post-production. Or you can be that person that's like, absolutely not going to learn that. Do not have time for that. No problem. You can actually cut away a lot of that work just by kind of thinking in this live to tape format, where if you're putting in all of the graphics and the music and the videos and the transitions and everything as you are going through and creating, then you don't have to add all of those in during post-production.
Yep. That is key. It is so important. Now, just the fact that obviously we love Ecamm, but if you guys want other choices out there, StreamYard is something that I've used in the past. We actually use it for my other show, for She Podcast. We use StreamYard to do that. And one of the reasons we do that is because we don't do all of these things. So we don't have as much transition. Like we just put, like, the easiest, the better. Like, I don't want to mess with stuff. We usually don't have the capacity of our brains to even plan the show sometimes. So I found like StreamYard gets us the best results, given the fact that we don't want to plan. So again, you always use the tool that you need for the moment. Riverside FM just had a fantastic upgrade, doing all kinds of really fancy stuff. That those pokes, my God, I was like, whoa. So they are also a great tool for you all to check out and test some of these things out. Test out some of the tools. Make sure that you're I know StreamYard, and for sure Ecamm for me is goals in terms of the Ecamm fam. Like, the community that you've built, Katie, is unbelievable. So I would say two of the strongest ones are Ecamm and StreamYard, and you can find the groups, the Facebook groups, for sure. And also with the live streaming events that they both put on, you'll really get to know a lot of people who use the tools, and you will be inspired by them, and you'll have a lot of support. So that's a huge component of being able to continue is having that community around you. And so that's what I would say for you to even start with. That's how I got to know being able to produce something like this, is by watching Katie's and the Ecamm team's work on their YouTube channel. So please go ahead and go check out all of that stuff. So it's super, super important. So let's go ahead and talk about workflow though, Katie, because before we begin on that though, I want to shout you guys out because you have the best execution that I have seen for a video podcast.
Yes.
I think almost ever. Like you're using I mean, all the things. I'm so want to copy everything you're doing. So unfortunately my co-host doesn't want anything to do with video, but that's okay. We are going to just,
that's okay.
You know, but so what you guys do is you go live like every week at a specific time. Right?
Yes. And we now joke about it because we now say that we're live in front of our YouTube studio audience.
Yes.
So we're embracing this kind of like old school television talk show format where it's like there is an excitement and a fun excuse me, in being part of the audience, right? It being like there for the live taping. So so we live stream our show every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern to our YouTube channel. And in that hour and a half usually of that live recording, we have an intro that is just like welcoming everyone to the live chat, welcoming, talking about any kind of cool updates, stuff that's only for the live audience, chatting and banter, housekeeping as we call it. And then we go into the main content of the show where we don't do a lot of engaging with the engaging with the chat. We just focus on the content itself and we're diving into the details. We're thinking about our listeners down the road as well as those live viewers and replay viewers. We're thinking about all of our audiences. And then we go into a live Q&A at the end where we are answering questions to our live audience and we're, engaging with them again. And then we close. So at the end of that live stream, we've then, we've been able to engage with, gosh, the one time I don't have water in front of me.
I know. I was going to say, do you want my water? I have a whole
I know. Yeah. I know that'd be fun. The one time, so we're basically able to engage with our live audience throughout that hour and a half. We're making that experience special. There's typically anywhere between 25 and 50 people that are on live with us, depending on, what they're up to and what they're able to do that day. But once we're done, we then have, because of Ecamm, we have the final mixed video with all of our graphics and overlays and everything that we put into it and our sound effects and our music. We have individual video files for myself, my co-host Doc, and individual audio files for each of us as well. And so all of those files go over to our producer, who then works through editing them for the week. That live video stays up on YouTube and anyone can access it and watch the live replay. So people are engaging with it even after the show is over. And then our replay video is done the following week, edited. Gosh, I'm sorry. That we upload to YouTube podcasts now. It used to be just a YouTube playlist. Now it's YouTube podcasts. And that's our final video. The audio from that then goes over through our podcast host out to all of the different podcast players so anyone can listen to that episode. and excuse me, anyone can listen to that. I know, I'm sorry, guys.
No, I'll give you a break if you want to take a little sip of water or something. Oh, you don't have water there, but I can keep talking through your workflow because I've been,
No, I think I'm good. All right, anyone can listen on any of their favorite player. And then we then use those video clips to we use a tool called Descript that gives us the transcript for that video and allows us also to break up those clips so that we have short form clips that we're able to use on Instagram and YouTube Shorts and TikTok and all of these various places. So we're creating the video once, we're doing it live, and then we're reaching a number of different audiences across the board.
Yep. I have, just so that you guys, one great way for you to see this in action, even if you go all the way back, and I think that I actually will implore you to do this, all the way back to episode 1 of The Flow and be able to watch their live event that they put out for their first episode. And I believe it was like an hour and 15 minutes or so. It was like a little bit over an hour for the entire event. And you get the vibe of like they go live, and just like what Katie says, we're here, we're live, we're doing welcome, all the stuff. And then they kind of go into the show portion where it's like you welcome all the people and all that stuff, and then you get to the content and it's outlined there. And mind you, there's mess ups and there's bloopers and there's retakes and there's like rereading things and making sure that, and you see all that when you're there live, but it's still fun. Mm-hmm. And then you guys check out the first episode of The Flow, but on their podcast playlist, and you'll see that I believe that episode is like around 50 minutes or something. I can't remember, but there's a substantial amount that was taken out. And
yeah. Yeah. We edited it down.
Yeah. So then like you can see that what happens there is that first one is longer. People who love to watch live streams tend to really like long live streams. I know that I do because I kind of want to just be there for a substantial amount of time. That's what I'm there for, to engage. But when you're consuming content on purpose, as in like, I want to get this episode, at least in terms of me and the way that I consume podcast, episodes, I usually just want to deal with what I have in front of me. So getting that real clean, just the facts, ma'am, like episode 1 was so great because I saw what you took away and I saw what a clean product you put out there as the first episode, where no time was wasted. I got straight to the point. All the fluff was taken out. And if you want to have that fluff, you can watch the live stream. But if you don't, you can listen to the podcast or go to YouTube and watch that podcast episode that's edited down to just give us the scoop, right? On the okay.
Yeah, and this is not, there are many other smarter people than me who have been talking about this as a process for a while now. But what I think is really special about it is that we can effectively, by just thinking through like what our outline or what our run of show is, we can really effectively reach a number of different kinds of audiences in the way that they want to consume content and in the places that they want to consume content.
Yeah.
So it's not, I think many of us think, okay, well, if I want to start a video podcast, I need to do one other thing, right? It's one other thing that you have to do. It's one other recording session. It's, if I want to create short videos, it's like, okay, well, when am I going to like record those? Or it's this huge process to be able to get these pieces out and to be able to put them in different spaces. And that's why, so for the longest time, many of us were just, duplicating the content. So it was like you were using tools and been like, okay, out on Facebook and out on YouTube and out on Twitter and out, it was all just the same message. But the reality is that people consume content really differently in all of these different spaces. So if you can get really clever with how your workflow is and the way that you are producing your content, you can create a really easy system where, I don't think that we are making the experience any less special for our podcast listeners than we are for our live viewers, than we are for our replay viewers, than we are for our YouTube podcast listeners. Like the experience is different enough in each of those spaces, but that they feel like it's made for them, but they don't feel like they're missing something else. We're not asking our podcast listeners to stop listening on the podcast players and come over to YouTube.
Yeah.
They don't need to do that. It's great that they're listening to it and they're still getting value out of that because we are thinking about them when we are creating the content, in the same way that we're not asking, any of our YouTube live viewers to be like, don't show up for our live audience, only go and listen to it over here. We're creating these spaces where they can consume the content in the way that they want.
Yeah, I like that whole entire mindset. I think it's great. And I love the fact that you're so mindful at being able to craft the experience for where it's being consumed, right? Mm-hmm. Because we all want the easiest thing ever, for sure, right? We all want 100%. That. And at the same time, though, I appreciate as a listener, if I look at a title from your show and I want to really get the scoop on that specific conversation, I want to get to it. If I want to go hang out with Katie and Doc Rock, I can go watch your live stream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if I have to leave, I can leave and watch it later, or I can just finish consuming the podcast episode later on my podcast app of choice, right?
Yep.
So it does, to me, it as somebody who's engaged with your community, I don't feel like you're telling me to do something with you in the way that is not good for me, right? I'm still an engaged person. I'm still using what I want. You're still teaching me. I still love Ecamm. Like, that's the point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all need to think like it's a balancing act. Yes, you have to do what's best for you as a content creator, as a podcaster, but you do also need to do what's best for your listeners and your viewers, or you won't have any.
Right.
So it is a balancing act of trying to figure out like what is the system that's most efficient and effective for you while you're creating and editing and working through your process, but yeah, not at the expense of what the experience is going to be like for your audience and potential audience on the other side.
Yep. We had a question about video editing, which actually gets us to we've recorded, right? So we're thinking about, we have the live stream, we're recorded in front of folks. That's great. We're using the tools that we want to use. Yep. And you have those files now. You said that you send them over to your editor, but do you have any experience as to some of the best editing software for working with both, right? Because now you're getting a video file and you're getting an audio file there. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so I will start off by saying that I am a terrible video editor, and I don't have a huge desire to learn that skill, mostly just because I think my time could be better served elsewhere. But I use fairly religiously a software called Descript, which I mentioned earlier. So what I do is you can take a video file, you can also take an audio file. You literally drag and drop it into a tool like Descript, and it will pull up. Not only will it pull up the transcript for the video, but it'll allow you to edit the transcripts of the text like a Word document or like a Google document. You can highlight and you can make any edits you want to that text, and it will edit the video for you with it. So if you can imagine, if I said and like and all these different filler words, you could automatically remove those from your video by highlighting them and just hitting delete. You can actually, they have a tool within it called overdub. So if I was talking about Ecamm and I accidentally was like, StreamYard does this, and I was like, oh shoot, I meant to say Ecamm, I can actually go in, highlight that, change it from StreamYard to Ecamm, click overdub, and it would put the word Ecamm in my voice over top and edit the video for me. And then it will also, which is magical, and then it would also allow you to make clips. So what I do every single, and I do with the edited files, but even if you didn't have a video editor, you could do a lot of video editing on the light side with a tool like Descript. Get the file, edited video file and audio file from our producer, and I drop it into Descript, and then I use that to grab the script to populate closed captions for my video and detailed transcript for my show notes. And then I also use it to clip up typically between 3 and 5 shorter video clips, which I do literally just by searching the text, highlighting it, and then I hit clip. It goes over and saves a clip, and then I download those files and I can send them through to go out through, I use Agorapulse, but whatever your social media tool is, you can program that in and then populate, in between episodes. Those are, teasers and promo videos and things. So if you're like me and you're like terrible at editing, a tool like Descript is a huge win because it makes it really fast and easy. If you are an editor or looking to kind of get into that editing space, I believe our producer uses Final Cut Pro, but there's a ton of different editing software out there, depending on what your budget is and what your skill set is and what you find helpful. But I would say, again, I'm a big believer the more you do on the planning side. We don't really do a lot of probably traditional editing compared to what people are thinking. We tend to keep it a little bit more real and authentic and raw. We're really doing a lot more trimming. So we're removing, any tech challenges that come up, moving those, any of that kind of welcome and end scene, we're trimming that out. But if we mess up or get a little off topic or on a tangent, we tend to leave that in because it's real, and that we're there to be ourselves in front of our audience. So
yeah,
for sure. We don't do a lot of heavy editing on that side.
And part of it is too, is that it's the type of content it is, right, everybody? Because it's like, it's a podcast, right?
Exactly.
It has that vibe. So there is a different, if you're creating like a YouTube video, there are other ways.
Very different than
it's a very different thing, right? So there is a little bit more editing. You're thinking about those transitions. You're thinking about the pacing. You're thinking about lots of other things that you don't really have to for a podcast in the way that we consume that content. So you get an opportunity to see that. And it's just so lovely to be able to do things like that. And especially to expand the ability for you to get like that piece of content quickly for something like Descript. Now, I did see global podcast editors mention that they use Reaper to edit videos.
Reaper's another really great one. Yep.
Yeah, and then I've actually been testing out Hindenburg 2 Beta, which now supports
I've heard of that one. I haven't tried it.
Aspects of getting a transcript in there as well. I've kind of been testing it out. I haven't spent enough time to do that, but you can pull a video in there as well to be able to do that. I've been also testing DaVinci Resolve, which is it's a free downloadable like program to edit videos there's a lot of support on YouTube for being able to learn that process. It's free. Again, you can test it out, check it out, see how that works for you. So a lot of this stuff, you got to get your hands in it, and kind of play around. There's platforms online that you can definitely use to do that. I think Veedio, Veedio, is another platform that you can use to just split things up and then create little social media videos that come out of it. So there's all kinds of stuff there. We are coming up into the hour, but let's go ahead and check to see if we have any questions. I'm going to ask our team if you have, and I forgot to say what you guys do is to add a Q and a colon. And I did not say that. I completely forgot to put that in my notes. So I completely.
No, we're not allowed any questions.
And now
we don't have any
we have questions in there, but my God, I have to like scroll through the thing. So if my team has anything that you want to put on their Slack channel, I'm happy to look. But if you see a question in there, Katie, that you'd like to address, I'm happy to do some. And there's actually. You know what? I forgot that I had asked another question. And so I'm going to ask these because I have these on our run of show that we
we have pre-submitted questions. Yep.
Yeah. So we had a couple questions from the Barefoot Backpacker. And they asked, do people watch podcasts on YouTube? We were contemplating making 4 to 5 minute teaser previews of upcoming pods with actual video content rather than putting the full pod on there, bearing in mind that the podcast is largely just me talking. Thoughts on that, Katie?
They really do. It's kind of crazy. I feel like I had a really similar question when we first got started with all of this. It was like, are people actually doing that, or are they just like searching for podcasts on YouTube and then then consuming them elsewhere? For context, we are seeing 10 times more views on our YouTube podcast playlist than we are listeners on all of the various podcasts.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
Again, we're a video company, so some of that may be our slight skewed numbers because of what we do and the topic that we're in. But yeah, I mean, it's really important to remember that YouTube has currently 2.5 billion users. So it's not even comparable to the top of the podcast players out there. It's just a totally different world of its own. And it's also, it's also owned by Google and is in itself a huge search engine. It's a number 2 search engine right after Google. Yeah. So I think from a discoverability standpoint, and people are finding them there. And if they're finding them there, they're watching there. You also have YouTube has the ability on their paid program. I believe YouTube Premium. They're always changing the name of it. YouTube Premium allows you to minimize. So again, I think it's become a lot easier for you to consume content in different ways, even by the same person. So I could start watching this video on my computer and then realize, I have to run and pick up my kids somewhere. And I could switch it over to my phone. I could still be on YouTube, but not looking at the video, driving, listening to the podcast, get back home, pop it on my TV. So like there is a lot of ability as far as YouTube goes. And they really are working on making podcasting significantly more visible and searchable and discoverable on their platform. So I think as they continue to make changes, you're going to miss out if you're not in those places.
Oh yeah.
As for whether or not, short videos that are like, teasers or promos or clips or shorts of your podcast, that's a really smart way to test it out. I mean, to see whether or not it makes sense for your audience and how the process is for you. Yeah, start by recording some short videos and build like a YouTube short list and see what the momentum is there and how many people are watching and listening. You don't have to, I don't think you have to do every single episode necessarily as a video if that's not what you want to do or you don't think it makes sense. But you could do special events. You could do like a live meet and greet with your listeners. That's like a special event on YouTube. You could do a series of short videos and see if it makes sense for you, and if it does, then go for it. Don't worry about your back catalog. Just start where you are and move forward if you want to add that video in.
Yeah, for sure. And just there was a question on the chat there about the camera that I'm using. I am using the Sony ZEV10.
And I have that one.
I love this camera. I think it's amazing. Anyway, continuing on, this is another question from the Barefoot Backpacker. I have both an audio and video trailer for my podcast as a whole, about 1.5 minutes, explaining what the podcast series is about. What's the best thing to do with them? I think we answered this question too. You're able to put them into like as YouTube shorts if you want to do something like that. And you can like put them as a reel or even an Instagram story. I think it would be really nice to start it off that way, because you can even grab that Instagram story and make it into a reel now super easily. So you can definitely do something like that, get your biggest bang for the buck when it comes to that kind of stuff. If you want to go a little fancy too, you can actually create just like a regular podcast trailer out of it and put it in your YouTube channel at the top if you want to do something like that. I mean,
you can even
do that.
The word is not pin, but if you can imagine, you can pin it into your YouTube channel as well, and you can decide whether or not that video is shown to new subscribers that are joining in or people that are returning to your channel. So you have some control on how you want to be able to leverage promos. You can use it as an ad too. I mean, if you have a budget for that.
Yeah, for sure. It's and then lastly here, I think we had this other question that came from Multispective True Story Podcast. How to get crisp quality video recording for Zoom or any other online interview with guests. Would love to switch from audio only to video.
I'll answer two questions at once because I see it coming through the Slack. So one is on my pixelation and stuff that you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
There's a couple different reasons why you're seeing that. One is internet connectivity. So either on my end or on Elsie's end, there's something happening in the internet, in the internet streets that's causing that. And then the second is I'm actually, I'm also using a Sony. I'm using a Sony a6400, but I'm a little bit farther away from my camera. And so I'm zoomed in digitally using Ecamm to be both on my end and on Elsie's end. And so that can add a little bit of take some of the crispness away. So in the future, I probably could have done a better job of just being closer to the camera, knowing how close we were. But that's what you're seeing there, in case you're wondering. And then the answer for Zoom, which is, I would say, as much as you can avoid using Zoom for professional video in this context, I would. Zoom lowers the quality of your video because they are trying to just be accessible to everyone. And that wasn't really the original use case of Zoom was not video podcasting. That is not what they are great at as far as quality goes. If for whatever reason you really are committed to using Zoom as your video podcasting tool or to record video in Zoom, I would reach out to Zoom, because if you let them know that you are using it for video podcasting and you're paying for one of their plans, you can actually request a higher output than what they are giving you. It's really low. It's lower than 540p. What they are giving you is pathetic. You would be really upset if you knew what the quality is, because again, that's just not the original use case, and they have millions of users, so they're trying to control that on their end. But if you are a paying customer and you let them know what you are using it for, we actually have I can probably send this over after. I didn't prep this, but we have a little templated email that you can send Zoom.
Oh, cool.
And they have, at least for our customers, and I'm sure for anyone else as well, if you email them and let them know, they will bring you at least up to I don't think you can get all the way up to 1080 unless you're like a really high level customer, but you can get, better quality than what you're getting right now if that's important to you. But I would say, if at all, you can just not use Zoom for video podcasting. It's probably a better way to go if you're really looking for better quality.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We have two last questions.
Sure.
And then we're going to call it a day, y'all. So this one here is from Christopher, and he says that he is interested in improving the quality of his audio. What do we recommend in terms of compressors, EQ, etc.? And now, mind you, that is also a really wonderful question for Doc Rock. So
I was going to say, I don't
come back next week.
I don't think I could answer. Yeah, I don't think I could answer this question with any level of authority. Doc has set up my entire audio. Audio is like my weak spot. I'm still learning this, but yeah, Doc knows all of that stuff inside and out.
So what I would tell you is to use unfortunately, there's like not one like real easy way to be able to do it. One of the key things for me has been being able to invest in something like the Rodecaster Pro that is behind me there, because I have had to, and mind you, people have helped me in terms of like really optimizing the audio for my voice and all that stuff. And sometimes it sucks and you have to like redo it, but you're going to tweak it in there until it works for you. And then have it like work like this, right? So I don't ever touch this device. It's like here, the settings are done. And then when I come in, it's always on point, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm on the go and I have to like take my stuff with me, I've been using the Shure MV88 Plus microphone. Mm-hmm. It's a little
That's
like small little, it's such a lovely microphone. And what's really cool about that is that you can have settings that you can set and they are saved into the mic, which is amazing. And so when I'm not here, I have worked in the situation that I'm going to be in, and then I just save it there. And then when I take it out, even if I'm doing video, even if I'm doing things like on Zoom, I still have the quality of audio that I need. Now, the key to this thing is that sometimes, especially if you have an interview show or something, it's harder to be able to balance both sides of the conversation when you're doing it like live to tape, right? You could do it always in post, especially if you have different files coming in different tracks. But that's when you're going to have, it would be great to have this and Ecamm, which Ecamm also has the ability to shift or add a little bit more boost to some of the audios within it. And that's one of the powerful things about using something like Ecamm that is thinking about how can we create the best experience, because they're thinking about it live first and not the other. So that's how I would play it for a first step, step.
I love it.
Yeah. And all right. So we have, oh, look, Danny answered your question, Christopher. He has all kinds of stuff there, all kinds of information with Isotope
for the win.
A suite of tools and Hindenburg Pro. I love Hindenburg Pro. And then, the Rodecaster Pro, it's also really solid to be able to do that. Okay, so we had a question for you and I before we wrap. It's a good way for us to wrap it up, which is, what words of encouragement or advice would we give someone just starting out with their video podcast?
Oh my goodness. I would say find a friend. I say that as someone who was never comfortable with being on camera, would absolutely panic at the idea of being on live video. I used to hate this. And what got me through it was having someone that could either join me as a co-host or as a guest so that I felt more comfortable, or who could just practice and test with me. So really, it's about getting comfortable with the idea of being on camera and just doing it over and over again until you get that level of confidence and you feel, capable of dealing with things as they come up and understanding how your gear and equipment works. All of these things just take practice. So, as Elsie was saying, we have a Facebook group called the Ecamm Live community. You do not have to be an Ecamm Live member to join. And we are a group where we're always testing and practicing and playing together and pushing all the buttons. So if you're like, I'd like to try this, but it's terrifying, come and hang out in our group and let us know. And we're happy to do some, test live streams in there or, answer questions and play around with you. But my advice would just be force yourself to get started and find someone that can help encourage you and practice with you and test with you, even if they also don't know anything about video, but it's just a person to be a cheerleader for you, because it makes a big difference.
It's so big. That's almost exactly it. And I think the other thing is, in the same way that we get so caught up with, oh, I hate the sound of my own voice.
Mhm.
People, I get it. I understand. I get it.
Same. We all
I get
do.
it.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
do. I get it.
Mhm.
But I think that there's really something to be said for you to be able to make adjustments on the fly, and the only way you can do that is by looking at yourself and or by listening to yourself, right? Because if you're not going to listen to yourself and then you capture like the crappiest audio ever because you weren't on mic, which you would have known if you were monitoring yourself,
Mhm.
then it's going to suck, right? So at first, just get used to seeing yourself, or get used to adjusting yourself, and do it not from like like, it's kind of hard to say. It's like I say it a dispassionate way, like you're not attached. It's like completely detached. It's like, I just want the camera to be higher so that this frame will be better versus I look ugly like this. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's times when you're like, I don't want that second chin to be coming out in the camera. Well, then put it up higher. Like, you get an opportunity to do that instead of later on going like, oh, I don't look so good. Well, you could have fixed that if you would have looked at yourself and moved it. So do it like that and have that be a friend. And don't ever think it's like, there's no pressure. There's no pressure to put stuff out there. You can fail and nobody will ever see the light of day. I recorded myself so many times by myself using Ecamm and using StreamYard. Play
Mhm.
with it and then watch it again. Nobody needs to see that stuff, and then see how it all works for you and what makes you feel comfortable.
Yep.
It's the best thing to be able to do. It's just think about it as play versus, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you'll always get nervous. You will.
You
I
are.
was nervous right before coming in here. I'm like, once you're in it, it's okay. But it's like super you get anxious and it's exciting and scary. But you know, that's why we do what we do. Dopamine hits. So,
Exactly.
so yes, thank you so much, and for being here, Katie. That was so
Oh, of course.
amazing. We'll have
I'm
all
always
kinds of
surprised.
links in there
Mhm.
for you guys to follow up. It's going to be so great, and please come back. Subscribe to our channel. Come back. Next week, we'll have Doc Rock. He's going to rock your world. And if you want to get to know him already and more of Katie's work, head over to the Ecamm Live team. They have an amazing team that does content for their channel. So if you're not subscribed already, I don't even know where you've been. You need to go over there and go ahead and hit that subscribe button over on their side to make sure that you follow their work. It's amazing the kind of education that they're putting out there. Your mind will be blown. And you will come back and then come back here and say, thank you so much for telling us to go to the Ecamm team, because yeah. Anyway, that's going to be great. But thank you so much, everybody. And I will look forward to you later. And thank you, Katie, for spending some time with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks everyone for watching.
Yay! Bye-bye. Oh.